Hi kids, welcome back. This is a early morning, Sunday morning video because I didn't do one on Saturday because I was out for the day and I don't want the algorithm gods to look unfavorably upon me for not putting one out on Saturday as I normally do. This is a slightly contentious one, as the title suggests, and I am not unaware of the bad timing for doing a video about this on International Women's Day 2026. So let's address both of those things. Firstly, I do not in any way, shape or form condone bullying, insulting, mistreating of women in any form whatsoever, right? Let's just get that out the way first. I'm not backing the actions of Joss Whedon in the past towards Gal Gadot, Charisma Carpenter, Michelle Trachtenberg, anyone else who has spoken against him for his bad behavior, right? It can be seen, I can be seen as hypocritical for doing this post backing up a abuser. And the reason I say abuser because I want to separate it from sexual abuse. Joss Whedon has not done any of that. I did see some posts, some comments today on some posts saying, yes, he's a sexual abuser. That's people who are not informed of the facts. You can argue that bullying someone of the opposite sex is sexual abuse, but it's not because they're female, I don't think. Look, it's a messy situation. And I've said in previous videos before that I'm not supporting his past behavior at all. I'm a huge Firefly fan. I'm a huge fan of the things he's done. Without Joss, we wouldn't have a lot of stuff, including Toy Story and probably the first X-Men movie. But I'm not giving him a pass for his bad behavior. You can track his behavior. I think his entire psyche went downhill after Age of Ultron. He had such a hard time making that movie that he was not the same happy-go-lucky, supposedly active feminist that he was. It's all went downhill after that. And he made a lot of bad choices, did a lot of bad things. But he is guilty of being a bully and being insulting. And, you know, he very publicized. He was very horrid to Ray Fisher and the people on the Justice League movie, etc. Like I said, Gal Gadot, etc. And again, not condoning that at all. Don't think that's something that anyone should do. In the same way that I'm not supporting Stanley Kubrick, who famously was like that with a lot of his stars. Shelley Duvall, famously on the set of The Shining, had a nervous breakdown after hundreds of takes where he was screaming at her to be more emotional, and she just couldn't stop crying. Patrick McGoohan from The Prisoner bullied Leo McKern after so many improvised takes that Leo McKern curled up in a ball in his changing room and had a nervous breakdown and said, I can't go on. That's not being an auteur. That's not being a skilled director. You don't hear this stuff about Spielberg. You certainly don't hear this stuff from Edgar Wright. In fact, you don't hear from many and most directors. But Joss Whedon didn't do anything criminal. He did some shitty stuff, but he wasn't convicted of anything. If you are uninformed and you are thinking about the Michelle Trachtenberg thing, I've said this a few times before and I'll say it again. The whole situation with Michelle Trachtenberg is that she was new to the cast. She was very excited to be there. She was very keen on hanging around with James Masters, who played Spike, and Joss wrongly dragged her into his office to give her an ear bashing and tell her, leave James alone, which reduced her to tears. She was a very young girl at the time. That was wrong. He did not touch her or do anything untoward like that. But what he still did was wrong. And that's why Michelle Trachtenberg's mother said, I do not want him in a room with her on her own ever again. That's the only reason why. But people like to dress it up as something more than it actually was. I still think Joss has suffered enough. I know a lot of you don't agree with me. I was talking to a friend yesterday who doesn't see it that way. But look, he's done what Kubrick has done. He's done what James Cameron has been like in the past. He's since apologized for his behavior like that. He said he was a tyrant in the past, and now he's realized you can get better results by being nicer to people. And famously, the film The Abyss was the one that everyone, and Titanic, in fact, was the one that a lot of cast and crew did not like what Cameron was doing. But since the Avatar movies, nothing. He has actually mellowed and changed and adjusted his behavior. I have only directed 2 things in my life, Off-World and Mummified. I would like to think that I've been fair and professional, but I'll tell you right now, I lost my shit a couple of times on Off-World. I was under massive stress. It was my first time directing. We had a big cast and crew. Everyone's doing their own thing. Actors were changing their lines that me and Chris Lynch spent a lot of time writing. People were on phones during filming 5 feet away. And I did lose my rag with a lot of people. I'm not proud of that, but I'm only human. I was stressed like anyone gets stressed. If you're a sort of person who never gets stressed, then let me know, because I bet you're not. Joss Whedon, again, I think it's a shame that he spoiled his own career in that way. And he did a big interview not long after, the whole cancellation thing. I think it was with Variety magazine. It might have been Hollywood Reporter, but I think it was Variety. It might even have been something like GQ or whatever. But they listed all his allegations of bullying and calling people out and being horrible to people. And instead of taking that opportunity to reflect and apologize publicly, he kind of doubled down and said, I don't remember that. Well, I was justified in doing that, which was, again, another massive dick move. Just admit, you were in the wrong. Apologize, for goodness sake. He's had a lot of time out of the spotlight now. A lot of people said he'll never work again. I hope that's not the case. I do try to separate the art from the artist. I still enjoy, Firefly, Buffy, Angel, Dollhouse, Serenity, etc. But, and again, I'm not condoning what he did, but I think he should be given this last final opportunity, especially with the cast of Firefly getting together and talking about something coming up. He should be involved. It's his baby. It's his creation. We wouldn't have Firefly if it wasn't for Joss Whedon. And I really, really sincerely hope, and I've said this to a friend of mine yesterday, if he doubles down in 2026 and says, I didn't do anything wrong, everyone else is, then I'm done with him, I admit. He's showing no remorse whatsoever. He should at least have spent all this time out of the limelight thinking about his actions. And he should, I hope he's done some work on himself and thought about what he wants. He has had some cast members from previous shows stand up for him and say, they stand with him and everyone else is being a bit overdramatic. But I don't know how to feel. I just think it goes to show that there are 2 sides to every story. And as we all know, there are people out there who are painting me in a very negative light. But there are also a lot more people out there painting me in a very positive light, because I do my best not to be a dick. But for people who don't like you, they will always avoid that side of you and paint you out in a negative light. All we can do is keep going. And I have apologized many times for anything I might have done to offend anyone, rub them up the wrong way. I've offered to talk to my detractors about what I may or may not have done, and willing to admit blame for things that I've done in the past if I'm truly guilty of them, or if I've said anything or done anything that's been misconstrued as a bad choice. But they have refused to speak to me. They prefer the fun of anonymously bashing me. Fine. That's, you've had, I've offered. I think Joss Whedon should now go on the Once We Were Spacemen podcast with Nathan Fillion and Alan Tudyk, or even make an appearance at this March the 15th announcement that Nathan Fillion and Alan Tudyk are doing with the Firefly cast. And he should be ridiculously penitent and say, I was wrong. I have had, in his own words, quiet contemplation, and I would like to apologize publicly to the people I've wronged, and I would like to move on. And there are people who will not accept that ever. There were people who have had enough Joss Whedon, that's it. And that's fine. If you want to think that way, that's fine. Like I said, there are legendary directors out there. I'll name some names: Stanley Kubrick, James Cameron, Ridley Scott, Roman Polanski. Let's not go into his stuff too deeply, shall we? Woody Allen. They've all done very bad things, and in some cases, well, in a few cases, much, 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 much worse than bullying someone on set and losing their shit. Joss has threatened to ruin, was it Gal Gadot or was it Charisma Carpenter? Maybe both. I would never threaten to ruin anyone's career. I don't hold that much power, to be honest. But again, crappy things to say, crappy things to do, and he should have worked on that by now. For someone who has for many years been an icon of feminism, a champion of feminism, he needs to think about what that means, and he needs to try and get some redemption. I'm not saying he's going to be back to being squeaky clean in anyone's eyes, but show some bloody remorse. And if he does that and apologizes on the podcast and says, look, I'm here because of Firefly, the cast were discovered mostly by him, and they can actually help him get his redemption and his return. The last thing I want to bring up is the controversy surrounding Alison Mack from Smallville. She served time in jail for human trafficking in a cult. That is literally a crime, right? Human trafficking. In current news, with a certain Mr. J and and all his cronies, human trafficking is big news at the moment, and she served time in jail. She was convicted. Yet she goes on the Michael Rosenbaum podcast to tell her side of the story. To be honest, if you're a criminal, I don't think you really get to tell your side of the story. But she went on there, showed a bit of contrition, and all the fans and all the comments are saying, give her a chance. Oh, let's not cancel her. Like, she was a convicted criminal who spent time in jail. So if that is forgivable, how come Joss Whedon shouting at people and being a bit of a dick, which is not against the law, by the way? We all know people like that who aren't in jail. How come Joss Whedon is beyond redemption and Alison Mack is, she'll be all right? It probably is because he is a man who took most of his frustrations out on women for the most part, Ray Fisher notwithstanding. And it's a tricky situation. And all I'm saying is I would love for Joss Whedon to be involved in Firefly. It's the thing he's most proud of, I think. And I would love for him to grow a pair and just say, look, I'm sorry for what I've done. I would like to apologize to people, and I hope we can move on from this, and I'll keep my nose clean from now on. That's it. That's why I'm Team Joss. Again, my stance is not popular with some people, including some of my best friends. They are not willing to give Joss any airtime or any thought or any hope nowadays. And that's completely up to them. But then again, you got to remember, I'm free to make my choices too. And again, being on Team Joss, being on Team Whedon, hoping for Joss's return does not make me support his actions in the past. I think I've said that enough in this video, but I'm going to say it again because some people just don't understand. I do not support the bullying, the ill treatment, the insulting of women in any way, shape or form. Okay? I just hope for more Firefly and a reformed Joss Whedon to try and get back on the saddle and make good for his past transgressions, as it were. That's it for me this week. Bit of a heavy one. See you on Tuesday with probably Babylon 5. We got to get back into Babylon 5. Again, big thanks to all of you who've been watching the videos and subscribing. The subscriber numbers are going up ever so slowly. It's getting exciting. And I will see you every Tuesday at 5 o'clock. Oh, and by the way, at the end of March, this channel's regenerating. And so will I be. See you then.